What is up, everybody? Bootman here, and we are back with another Marvel Snap video. And in this video, I have a very special guest, and it is none other than fellow content creator Paper. So I brought him on the channel. He created this brand new deck that, like, legit nobody expects. Nobody expects it. He won Infinity Conquest with it. And I was like, I gotta get Paper on. I gotta get my dude over here to chat about the deck and discuss a few other topics. So that's what we're gonna be going over, because I know a lot of you are trying to hit, Infinity Conquest, get that beautiful little avatar. All right. So before we get started, make sure down in the description below, remember, I'm gonna link all of Paper's socials down there. I'll link his YouTube, his Twitch, his Twitter. He'll give you his Twitch schedule. He mentions it in this video, but also make sure you follow him over on YouTube. He's like up in his editing game, and yeah, his new video on this deck, he goes really in depth in it and shows some gameplay. So make sure you go check that out. All right, but also before we get started, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell, because if you love Marvel Snap as much as I do, especially the competitive aspect, ranking up the ladder, going crazy in conquest mode, you're definitely going to want to be here and not miss any upcoming content, because I actually have another collaboration video, and it's going to be about bounce decks, and that's going to be coming probably tomorrow or the following day. All right, so you don't want to miss it. And we have an awesome Discord community down in the description below. Follow me on Twitter too, @BootmanMSTZ. Everything you need is linked down in the description. But if you're subscribed and you're following me on Twitter, you can be part of the monthly season pass giveaways. All right, I give away 3 season passes for free every single month. So we got the Phoenix Force season coming out next week. So make sure you're subscribed, ring the notification bell, follow me on Twitter so you don't miss the giveaway. All right, so before we get started, real quick, so I used to have a podcast. Where I interview people, a bunch of different authors. Anyways, doesn't matter. But Zoom would record side by side, and I used to be able to edit it and make it all pretty. And for this, it just recorded like one screen. So you're only gonna see me or Paper in it. I know you wanna see both of our beautiful faces at the same time. So when one of us is off camera, just kind of like visualize the other one just looking amazing. All right, but I want to throw that out there because I'm upset. I was getting ready to like sit there and edit. So basically, you're gonna see each one of us talking. I'll have the deck up on screen so you can check it out. Maybe you could play a little Marvel Snap, start testing it out during our conversation. Have a good time, have some fun, because I know you're doing other things while you're playing Marvel Snap. All right, but anyways, here's my conversation with Paper, and don't forget, check out his links down in the description. Go give the dude a follow. Go give him a sub. All right, and yeah, we'll talk to you later. All right, Paper, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. So for the few people in my audience who aren't familiar with you and your content, let us know a little bit about yourself and where we can find you.
So I'm primarily a Twitch streamer for Marvel Snap. I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at twitch.tv/paper with 2 R's. And I also upload weekly deck breakdown videos, which I assume that's why I'm here right now from my latest video. So yeah, I do deep dives into the decks that I've played like throughout the week and kind of give a more detailed description as to why certain cards are picked for certain decks and advantages for each and all that. So
Yeah, and this last one, you're stepping up your editing game too.
yeah, I put a lot of work into this most recent one.
How's it performing? Last time I checked, it had like 1,000 views, something like that. Is it doing well?
Yeah, it's like 3.6K now. It's definitely the
Oh,
fastest video
dang.
I've ever posted in terms of like views and stuff. So yeah.
Nice. It is an interesting deck. So, real quick, I got the list in front of me. We got Spider Ham, Korg, Zabu, Ghost Spider, Jeff, Killmonger, Shadow King, Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, Rockslide, Iron Lad, and Dr. Octopus. So we got a nice little hodgepodge here. All right, you do a whole breakdown in your video, but what was the idea behind this deck, like diving into it and like making it? What were you thinking?
So I really like Ghost Spider. I like all of the Spider cards. Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Silk, Ghost Spider. They're kind of like my favorite theme in Marvel in general.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make them work. I haven't really found many ways to make like Silk work, and I haven't bought 2099, but
Yeah.
the main idea here was that I thought Ghost Spider was like just a better Doctor Strange, because you can
Mm,
throw Doctor Strange in any deck and he'll just pull your biggest card. But with Ghost Spider, you can pull anything as long as it's the last thing you played. So when I first made this deck, Killmonger, Shadow King, and Spider-Ham were not in the deck. I was running Green Goblin, Arrow, and Nebula, and this was for my infinite climb. And I
Hmm.
realized like Ghost Spider has a lot of flexibility. You can play a Green Goblin and then Ghost Spider the next turn, and it would pull the Green Goblin to wherever you played Ghost Spider. So you
Mm,
can win like a Space Throne with that on turn 4 if you don't play
mm.
Goblin on Space Throne. But yeah, there's some interesting plays. You can pull like the Goblin to like a long lane or something that's super interesting. So that was kind of the first iteration of the deck, is I just wanted to have Ghost Spider to pull like a big card and kind of juke my opponent out. So I put
Yeah,
together just like I did it live on stream. I opened up the deck editor and I was like, all right, Ghost Spider, DocHawk, Shang-Chi, what now? And we
yeah.
just kind of like filled the deck in after that. And because that's kind of the main combo that the deck was built around. You don't always win the game with a DocHawk Ghost Spider play because it's got Zabu as well. So
Hmm.
but the main idea was that Ghost Spider pulling Doc, just abandoning a lane that we've pulled all of their options into, and then making the opponent kind of try to play with like 1 or 2 cards on the final turn. And also, they're not expecting 13 power to be added to a lane after Doc Ock's played, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. So like Shadow King, let's talk about my man Shadow King for a minute. So we haven't really seen him much outside of like surfer decks, right? People are starting to get on the Shadow King train.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time I've seen Shadow King being used in a decent deck outside of surfer. What about the meta made you want to toss him in there over like other options?
Yeah, so like sometime last week, I was just kind of messing with the deck, and I was messing with stuff with like Silk in it because I was like, I really want to make Silk work, and I was like, okay, well, she's just like a big power, but like, why am I losing? Because I had like kind of a rut. I lost like 3 gold conquests in a row, and I was
Mm,
like, why? What's going on? Like, why am I losing? And I realized it's because of high evolutionary and bounce just being like such strong and dominant decks in the meta, and Killmonger and Shang-Chi weren't exactly enough to guarantee wins all the time, especially if you don't have Zabu. You can't play
mm.
like a Killmonger and a Shang-Chi at the same time or whatever. So I just kind of figured like let's throw in Shadow King. Like I had my deck set up with 11 cards without Shadow King, and I was like, like can we just throw something weird in here and let's just throw in Shadow King? And then like I remembered about a week prior, once Spider-Hand came out, I the day that he came out, I put him in like a surfer deck and it was pretty okay. I put him in just like a bunch of different decks. And then at the end of the night, I built a deck with Shadow King in it, trying to figure out a way that I could get a pig on the board just to see if Shadow King gets rid of it. And it ended up working. We didn't win that game, but it ended up working. I was like, okay, so we know that this combo works. We know that the pig can get nullified by Shadow King. So like throwing him in this deck was just kind of a no-brainer. It was a lot easier to pull off in this deck than the first deck that I
All
built
right.
with around.
So
But
so this is something where like, man, I think it's like the best kept secret. I'm afraid to talk about it, even though I just mentioned it in my video. But explain what you mean Shadow King worked with the pig. All right. Like, because I don't think people understand it the way you explained it when you just tweeted back at me, but break it down for folks.
so when Spider-Ham hits a card, transforming it into a pig, that card copies the power and the cost of the card that was hit. The base card of Pig itself is a 0 cost, 0 power card that gets the power of the card that it hits gets added to that 0 0. So that card's base is a 0 cost, it's or 0 power. The printed value is 0. So when you Shadow King it, it reverts it to its printed value, which is 0. So hitting a pig with Shadow King is basically just like an extra Shang-Chi in your deck, is what I said in my video. So
Yeah, like that that is nuts. And like it feels broken, but like, when I think about it, and I was messing around with the deck a little bit too, like it's hard to make that happen unless but like in a lockjaw deck, someone might cheat out like a Hulk or something like that. Well, I guess you wouldn't pig the Hulk, but I have played like, when there's Titan on the board and they get like a turn 5 Hulk or whatever. In your video, you had a great one where like they stacked up on like Baxter building or something. And you just like dropped
right,
it
with the
there.
destroyer.
But oh, well, like,
Yeah.
so do you think? I don't know if you've or like we've heard from Glenn. Like, is this intended like for this to work like that? Like, is
I
this
think
like
it
gonna stay?
is.
You think?
Yeah, I think it is going to stay. It's a 3 card combo to pull off. It's not like you said, it's not an easy thing to pull off. And even if you're playing it on turn 6 and they're playing the pig for some reason on turn 6, like you have to obviously also not have priority. Like you
Yeah.
have to call exactly which lane they're playing it in. I think it's intended. I think it's a fine thing just because it does like three very specific cards that, I mean, DocHawk adds 10 power, but like it's not like you're adding a ton of value and ton of power with these cards together. It's
Hmm.
just if you hit the pig, like, and it's a good pig hit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if we're even talking about the current meta in like lockjaw lists, they're running Odin, Jane, Foster, Doom. Like those could be three cards you pull with DocHawk. And like you can't
Yeah.
Shang-Chi that lane, you can't Shadow King that lane unless you pulled one of them as a pig. So like Shang-Chi can't do everything that Shadow King does, and Shadow King can't do everything that Shang-Chi does. So having both of them in one deck, very often turn six is if we have Zabu out, turn six becomes Shadow King Shang-Chi, counter
Mm.
everything that they have on the board. And that's like
Yeah.
kind of goes back to my roots. Is kind of my favorite kind of decks that I like to play is just getting stuff on the board, like the old school Sarah control decks, getting stuff
Hmm.
off on the board and then just countering whatever your
Yeah.
opponent does.
That's what I love too. So let's chat about that because I've been I've been a big advocate for like tech cards and everything like that. So let's talk about quote unquote bad cards because you remember Shadow King. You remember
Yeah,
when Shadow King came out. All right, we all do. What was he like a
for sure.
4-2 or whatever?
Yeah, I think
And
so.
we saw the same thing with Super Scroll. I'm trying to articulate this, so maybe you can help me out, Paper. So I get it. So I get when these cards release, and since up until recently, everything was being released into Series 5, and people will say, this is a bad card, when I think a lot of people mean this card is not worth 6,000 tokens, you know? But something I was just talking about in a recent video is, it feels like most cards will eventually have their time to shine, right? The meta is constantly changing. We're getting OTA balance updates regularly now. It's like twice a month now, and the patch updates where they do balance changes. So cards that might be bad now could be great later, right? Like we're seeing Shadow King and Surfer decks. Now your deck is gonna get more popular. So like, what are your thoughts on this idea of like bad cards? Because I feel like it kind of makes people overlook something that you saw with this deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So obviously the cost reduction to Shadow King really, really made him open up. Like you're able to play him in Surfer now. You could not play him in Surfer before. There was just no reason to.
Hmm.
Um, three cost is a very good sweet spot for a card because it gives you the option to play two cards on turn six. A lot of the tech cards are four costs, which means you either have to pretty much only play that card on the final turn with like a crappy two drop, or if you have Zabu in the deck, you have to have Zabu on the board to get like two of those cards out. Like playing Shang-Chi and Enchantress just isn't possible unless
Hmm.
you have Zabu. In terms of like reviving like dead cards or like bad cards, um, I mean, we saw it even for like the 2 week spat that that Super Scroll was in every single deck. Like
Hmm.
the meta evolves and changes in ways that pushes other cards. I think like when Patriot becomes popular eventually again, we're gonna see a lot more Super Scrolls probably or Enchantresses. Enchantress is hardly played right now because she's
Yeah.
like not that great of a card. There's not a lot of ongoing stuff that you want to hit besides maybe a Hulk, and even then you need more. You need
Yeah.
more than five power to beat that Hulk. So I think every card in this game pretty much has a chance to survive or like have its moment. There's some cards that might need like a cost reduction like Shadow King or like a power increase to be viable. But I think the way that the OTAs are working has really livened up the game a lot and given a lot of life to bad cards.
Yeah. So, okay, let me ask you this. Howard and Ghost, what are your thoughts on those cards?
I just this is gonna be controversial.
Well, you
Understand
won't
why,
offend me. You won't offend me, I
but
promise.
I just think Howard. I don't find him very useful. I don't have him. And honestly, I haven't played Ghost too much since I got her either, but I think Ghost is more viable than Howard, mostly because I mean, there's thoughts of putting Ghost in this deck just to have my opponent always have priority, so I can always Shadow King, Shang-Chi, Killmonger, whatever.
Hmm.
And in fact, one of my recommendations for if you don't have Jeff is to put in Invisible Woman for that reason, just to
Yeah.
have the loss of priority for that location. I think Ghost is better just because of that priority is so important in this game that losing it on purpose with Ghost is like really, really nice. It's a good little effect. But Howard, I feel like Howard's use is like what? Iron Lad. Does Jubilee pull from the top again? I don't remember.
Yes.
So
Yeah, she pulls
it's
from the
like
top,
Iron
but
Lad and Jubilee.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, basically I only like I'll pair those two up. Um, but like, so let's talk about that. That was something else I was gonna ask you because I've been messing around with this deck and stuff like that. And there's a couple things where I'm just like, and one of them is the priority issue, right? Like I was running against bounce decks and like I love bounce, it's my favorite, but playing against it drives me insane. So like what's your personal strategy like with this build? Because I was just talking on Twitter about it. I'm like, man, do I need to like start slotting in Ghost? Because Ghost was actually doing decent when the stature build was big because everybody was running Shang-Chi and Enchantress, and then you could do it last, you know what I mean? So I love putting Ghost in. But yeah, so with this current build, what are you doing against bounce decks? So I'm sitting there with my Killmonger, but I'm like, can't
Yeah.
do much.
Um, I mean, mostly it's just relying on the fact that they're going to have like an Angela or a Bishop out, and both of those are probably going to be in separate lanes. So I just
Mm-hmm.
play for basically one lane until turn uh 4 or 5, basically, because you can play for just one lane. They can get priority in the other two lanes because they can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're going to have either the Killmonger or the Shadow King options. Your turn 5 is most likely going to be DocHawk. So you're probably, in a lot of cases, you're losing that lane. Or if you're winning that lane, that's just one lane that you just win straight out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have, like, you pull like a Mysterio and like, I don't know, you just pull some stuff that has like close to no power. Like you get there a hit monkey on like 2 power or something sometimes. So that lane's just like one. Then you have like Darkhawk, Rock Slide. You have options to just straight out win another lane.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they already have their Angela down, they're relying on that Angela being like a 10, 12, or yeah, like a 10 power at the end of the game. So they're
Yeah.
calculating like, oh, I don't need Hitmonkey in that lane. So
Yeah.
that's already revealed. So Shadow King's already going to hit that card, or Shang-Chi. But like being able to reset like that Angela lane or something is like really, really important. Since that's a card that's on the board as well as Bishop. Like you can hit either one of those cards as long as you don't play the DocHawk. You have to kind of like judge,
Yeah.
like what's going on in that game. But in most cases, the DocHawk's going to win you one location, and then you kind of have enough power to kind of finagle or like win that second location that you need. Because they
Yeah.
can't they can't add power to a location if they already have 4 things there. Like those
Yeah.
decks don't run Ironheart, they don't run Fantastic, like they don't run stuff to add power to other locations.
Yeah, like yeah, I was loving Shadow King because when Shadow King originally came out was when Surfer was like in its glory,
Yep.
right? But Shadow King was still a 4 cost. But because I used to play a very tech heavy deck, it wasn't Sarah, but it was my old Majantress deck, and like I wanted it against Surfer because nothing would get over 9 power, and I'm like I need something.
Yeah.
And then Shadow King came out, but it just was too expensive. But yeah, so with this deck, so like I I gotta admit, I got a little jealous of Felicity tweeted out,
Right.
she's like, oh, I used
Her
Paper's
first
deck and
run.
I got Infinity my first run.
Her
I'm
first
sitting
run she hits infinity, and then the second run I think she got to the fourth or the fifth match.
like
And
it's
like,
done. And like I'm sitting here and I'm just yanking down Shang-Chi with my DocHawk and stuff. Like,
yeah.
did this deck take you a little bit to get used to? Like, are there any like is there like a learning curve? Because maybe it's because I don't play too much DocHawk. And like when I was watching you play on stream when you hit Infinity the other night, I was like, I could see that you're strategic with it. Do you think it like takes some practice and like Felicity might just be a savant when it comes to this deck?
I mean, for sure, Doc Ock is a very difficult card to play if you aren't used to playing him, which I technically, when I started playing this deck, I was not used to playing Doc Ock. I think maybe I had like 100 boosters on him. Now I'm at like 500 boosters on him. Like I've played
Yeah.
him a lot in the past 3 weeks. Um, he definitely takes some skill. When Shang-Chi is more prevalent in the meta like he is right now, sometimes it is kind of it does really suck to pull it. But other times, like, I mean, I would say probably half the time that we're playing Doc Ock, it's not even to win that lane because our plan is usually to pull that Doc Ock away anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if we get Shang-Chi there, like it's whatever. Now they don't have Shang-Chi for our Dark Hawk. Like now we know that that option's gone. Dark Hawk can just go wherever. We have no fear of that happening. If it doesn't die, we have the Ghost Spider tech to pull it away. So
Mm-hmm.
like the Shang-Chi stuff is probably the only thing that really screws with us a ton, unless we pull. I had one of my games in my Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity Conquest, where I pulled 4 ongoing cards, and it was like Onslaught, Claw, Iron Man, and I'm just like, okay, I lose this game.
Yeah.
Like There's some things that when you pull, like some matchups, DocHawk is not going to be the card that you want to play against an ongoing deck specifically. You just avoid playing DocHawk because you can't contest with what they have because you don't have Enchantress.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's some decks that you just can't play the card, but I mean that's true for decks that run Enchantress. You just like can't play Darkhawk until the final turn if they have Enchantress in their deck at all. And that's kind of why I took out most of my one costs in this deck. Like I was running Nebula for a while. I took her out because I just kept getting Killmongered like every other matchup. And I was
hmm
like, well, if I draw this card in any of my hands, it's a dead card. Like it doesn't
yeah,
add anything to my deck right now. So that's why I only have Spider-Ham and Korg because they're kind of expendable.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So with this and all the reps you've got in with it, what would you say are its best matchups and worst matchups in the current meta?
The best matchup is for sure Bounce. Everything that we have in this deck counters Bounce. Shadow King, Killmonger, Shang-Chi, like they all hit Bounce pretty hard. DocHawk stops them from getting like a big Mysterio play. Like I said, it can stunt their Hitmonkey as well. The worst matchup, I think, I will say that High Evolutionary is still a favored matchup in a lot of cases. So I don't see that as being the worst. I kind of built this to play against both Bounce and High Evolutionary.
hmm
But the decks that I run into a lot of issues are with like location lockdown decks because I'm running like Ghost Spider, trying to like, move around the game a little bit. The location lockdown stuff, like we have to have specifically Darkhawk on 4 to hit their Stormed lane, which if they play like Cyclops or
Yeah,
the thing, like you're probably just losing that lane anyways. We have to be worried about Professor X plays. DocHawk becomes a hard card to play into lockdown decks because you can just pull Professor X and then they just win that lane, and
yeah,
you can't abandon, you can't pull the DocHawk out of it.
yeah,
So Spider-Man coming out's a little bit less of a big deal, but DocHawk pulling Professor X is actually terrible.
yeah, yeah.
And
Uh,
in those situations, the opponent probably already won the Storm lane, so you just lost that game on turn 5. So that's one of those matchups where DocHawk is like a bad card, in my opinion.
It's been weird because after they nerfed Spider-Man, I feel like the lockdown version like kind of died out, and like now I keep running into it. But like,
Yeah.
why do you think this is good against like the high Evo lockjaw version? Like, do you have a specific strategy for that? Like when you go into it?
Yeah, I mean, if they hit the perfect hand of like Thor into like Lockjaw Wasp and they pull out like Jane and then they get to bounce two Mjolnirs, like
Yeah.
you just can't win that. And that happens probably 30% of games. Um, but I with Lockjaw specifically, they're going to be playing stuff into that lane every single turn in most cases. Shang-Chi destroys that. Shang-Chi
Yeah.
just wins that outright. And then if we've hammed and we have Doc Ock, like I mean, sometimes I'm playing Shang-Chi on like turn 4 just to get it out because I've seen they've already gotten like Chavez, and I know they're probably going to play like another Wasp in the Lockjaw, and they have priority. So I'm probably killing two things right there, which is like really good. Um, but like I feel like I win more often than not against Lockjaw because I'm able to just control what's coming out. Like we have Korg and Rockslide. Those are 3 rocks added to their deck that
hmm
Jubilee and Lockjaw are likely to pull because of the way that RNG works in this game. But I
Yeah.
know for me, if I'm playing Lockjaw, I'm pulling those rocks every single
Yeah.
round. So like, and then we have Shadow King. If we've hammed something, like we usually ham in that matchup on turn 1 just to try to get like
hmm
Magneto or Hulk out of there, and then we can just Shadow King that. So we usually win the Lockjaw lane. It's when they have the perfect Thor hand where they're able to have Thor in one lane, Lockjaw in another lane, and then they play like a Hulk in the last lane. Like
Yeah.
that's when things get a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. So you just kind of keep an eye out on that and bounce if
Mhm.
it looks like they got.
I'll usually Doc Ock the Thor lane because like if we pull Hulk, Magneto, those are 3 cards that are going to be Shang-Chiable by the end of the game. He has
Mm,
priority in that lane, and he probably has priority in the Lockjaw lane too. So we always are negative on priority. So we can just Shang-Chi that lane because he's probably also pulled Jane and has Mjolnir. Like, so
Yeah.
Thor, Hulk, and Magneto all die. So, and that's majority of his power in the deck. Getting the Hulk on the board early is really, really important in that matchup because we're able
Yeah.
to get rid of it so easily.
Yeah. For sure. So I got a couple more questions for you. With Iron Lad in there, do you have a strategy for that? Like, what are you hoping to hit? Do you think everything's good? Are you kind of like just seeing how the match goes, what are you going for with Iron Lad?
So it really depends on how the match is going. If we know that DocHawk is a great card against that matchup, like Iron Lad's value skyrockets.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, hitting Darkhawk and Rockslide is amazing, and like hitting Jeff is also really, really good. Having a 6 power that can just go anywhere, basically
Mm-hmm.
a mini vision. Like almost everything in this deck is really, really good to hit. And then even if it doesn't hit, or if we don't play it early in the game, having Iron Lad on the final turn when we only have like 2 cards left in our deck or 3 cards, it's like a 30% or 50% chance that we're going to hit the thing that we're specifically looking for, whether it be a Shang-Chi or a Shadow King, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he's just really, really good at doubling up on our effects. And also, if you don't draw Zabu by turn 4 and you hit it with Iron Lad, now you don't have to spend that 2 energy and you just got 6 power on the board. So basically everything in the deck is good to hit with Iron Lad besides Shadow King, Shang, and Killmonger, and that's only if you don't get them when you need them. But then you know
Yeah.
that you're drawing them. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, because I just feel naked running Iron Lad without my boy Howard, you know?
yeah, well, I was running this deck for a while, like I said, to Infinite with Green Goblin in the deck, and
Oh no.
I remember Jeff came into my channel when I was streaming. He's like, "Wow, why are you playing Iron Lad with Green Goblin? That's really risky." And I'm like,
You're
"You
gambling,
just
man.
got to play it smart, I guess." Like it was working because that was before Galactus got changed. So
Yeah.
people were playing Galactus a lot and we were able to counter it that way without running
Yeah.
like debris and stuff. But we were also running Arrow as just like 2 more cards that like kind of countered Galactus in that situation. So
Mm,
those kind of fell out of favor when Galactus kind of fell out of favor. So
yeah, for sure. So real quick. I'm gonna toss in one more question on top of the other question I was gonna ask. Do you think any decks are like too powerful right now? Whether it's high evo, is it bounce, just because like I was just seeing a bunch of people talking about it. Like I see people like despising bounce. Like it's getting more
yeah,
popular, but the deck takes practice. Like not
yeah.
anybody can just pick it up like it's high evo lockjaw. But what are your thoughts about the current state of the meta? Are there any balance changes that you're hoping for in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I this is the only deck that I've had success against High Evolutionary with. High
Mhm.
Evolutionary is so hard to do anything against, even if you're running Luke Cage or whatever. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't really help the fact that they're dropping 20 power with 1 card
Yeah.
that's not infinite on the final turn, plus dropping Wasp to win another lane. Like I think Hulk needs to become +2 for every energy you skipped or for every turn that you skipped an energy. And I think Wasp maybe only hits 1 card instead of two
Yeah.
cards. I think those are good changes because it still keeps the identity. Wasp becomes a 0/2, which is still fine. It's better than Yellow Jacket. So
Yeah.
I think Haiva is the only deck that really needs to get hit. I think because Bounce is right up there with it and gaining popularity, that they're going to also hit something with Bounce, whether it be Beast making stuff 0 cost or like what? Because the nerf to Beast making him a 3 cost was not really a nerf. And as soon
Yeah.
as I saw that, I was like, it's not really going to change much. I had to play it on my kitty a turn later, which is like
Yeah.
whatever. He's adding 4 power to the board now. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
When they did that to
fine.
Beast, I'm like, whatever. I
Yeah.
got 2 extra power. But
The thing
yeah,
about Bounce is like people are saying that it's like worse than High Evolutionary. I don't believe that. I rated somebody after playing a Bounce deck for like 2 hours, and it was somebody not playing Bounce. And somebody in the chat was like, "Oh, finally, somebody not playing Bounce." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Everybody's running High Evolutionary. Like,
yeah.
what do you mean finally someone not playing Bounce?"
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I was talking on Twitter about it. I was like, yeah, I was going back and forth about it being stronger or not being as strong as like Haivo Lockjaw. But then I started checking Untapped again, and it looks like it's up there.
yeah, I mean,
So
it's an easier deck to build, so
yeah. Oh
everybody
yeah.
got Kitty for free. So
Yeah, exactly.
as long
So
as you have Hitmonkey, like you can make the deck perfectly. So.
yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people did get Hit Monkey.
Mm.
Love that card. But last thing, now that you've gone through the Infinity Gauntlet and everything, like something that everybody struggles with is like tilting out. All right. Like me, like I even though like I'm always like all about my mental health and stuff, like I will just straight up concede if I have a few bad hands. So like what do you do to keep your chill when it's just like back to back, like just like bad matchups, bad draws, bad locations? Like how
Yeah.
do you just say like get that out of your mind to like stay in the right mindset?
That's a difficult one because I come from a world where I grew up playing League of Legends and tilting was just a way of life.
Yeah.
So I stopped playing that game because I realized it made me unhappy to tilt, and I tilted every game. So I was just unhappy playing the game.
Yeah.
So I kind of, after I quit League, I started kind of reframing my mind, and just like in this game, it's kind of like there's so much randomness that can happen, whether it be locations or your opponent's draws, which the draws is the same for every card game. I've been playing card games since I was in high school. So like I'm used to that. But the location variance is kind of, you know, it is what it is. And that's just
Mhm.
kind of my motto at this point. Like it is what it is. They got space thrown in two darkhawk good like Subterranea and Vibranium mines, and they're running darkhawk. Like it is what it
Yeah.
is. Like just move on to the next one. If I can get out before, if I can get out with just one cube, if it's a conquest game, like that's fine. Just move on to the next one. We're not going to get that luck every single game. Like your opponent's not going to get that luck every game. It's unlikely that they get that luck every game, but it's possible. But
Yeah.
I mean, the first tournament that I played in, um, I don't remember what tournament it was. It was one that had a bunch of creators in it, but the very first tournament I played in was super. It was Snap Clash, I think, and
Mhm.
I played against somebody who every single match, I think I was playing a deck that ran stuff that was like lower cost, and Crimson Cosmos kept coming up.
Oh
But it
yeah.
was like 3 games in a row where Crimson Cosmos came up, and I just like lost the entire tournament. I just lost due to locations, and I'm like, I mean, it's whatever. Like
Yeah.
I can't do anything about that. It's not like I can be like, hey, get this location out of the game because it hurts my one deck that I didn't prepare for that location for. Like
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
is what it is, and you just have to kind of run with it. Streaming helps me a lot because getting tilted on stream is really embarrassing. So I don't want to get
Yeah.
tilted on stream. So I'm just like, all right, I'll stream and I'll just stay cool because it's embarrassing if I don't stay cool.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I don't stream.
Off stream, I will say I'll get into games where I see the first two locations, I just leave. Even
Yeah.
on ladder, I'll just leave. I'm like, I'm not even doing this. It's
Oh
not worth
yeah.
getting upset over this RNG. It's just get on to the next one because the game's only going to be in my head for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Do you have an official name for this deck? What are we calling it?
I called it Ghost Doc, like Ghost DocHawk. That's what I called it. I mean, in my game, it's called Doc Spider, but I really didn't think of like an original name for it. It's just the idea of Ghost and DocHawk that like Ghost Spider and
Brought it all
DocHawk.
together.
Yeah, it's just Ghost Doc. I don't. I'm not super creative in that way to come up with
All
like
right.
a.
If anybody out there comes up with an awesome name, let us know. But yeah, once again, let everybody know where they can find you, what are your socials, all that kind of good stuff.
So my Twitch is twitch.tv/paper with 2 R's. I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. I do some variety streams. I'm playing through Final Fantasy 16 right now, so if you see me playing that, probably don't click on it because of spoilers. My Twitter is paper lol, and my YouTube is at paper snap. And I really, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to consolidate those because it's
There you
three
go.
separate names.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for everything, man.